daha ağırlıkla anında katılıyoruz bunu. Belişçiyle eğitim eşitliği hiyerna zabıtın çözülmeyi için zabıtın kon. Yani ciddi hasret bazı konuyu katılmamız. Hatta eğer geçici istikamette geçsandı bu da arkada istikamette atkodan bu nasaba kayne darbe sarhoştan lindan hidden itlenige eğitim nasam çambi Quran sikis için ağır si batı kursun dolu bağışlayan dolu ni edişçi konu Zazende da isani bada joba kon it's about those loba you kon e hay jato da istifadan kon khatos le isji kon e hay sabite kon e hazan kon ani da no ado kon as ka ishin ka kon musico asin so da isan de ale jeba has in ke in gito kon Washington Harvard adod abino kon kon se na samba kai kasi kajubi no yeji se shika hot de la kon kichi na kias ko kichi jo ba ni chen akoto ba de chen chen hala jo ba ki ya da ho kon chiya da and koda and she's that hardship we went through shika Ke hai kon si kisi kon kaya ani kona ani ada ani ko ke ni ko as koi sani da si ada koi ya kontra ba ta ne kontra de na je kontra this to kon ba to ba ya adan to kon cha di je kon asi di ba kon sa si ya ani ke ya sa si ya konusu da hot de kon yan za ki jo ba ko zino ki but our job is to try to lean people this was and kon an ani dan fenada kon out inashi nje na so ko ero ni ki asu ko ka honya no ni ke ni no nje na so ko ero ni Jesus ni no
amen you want to know said a prayer Neville, so we had I'm meeting for the Neville Chocolate Culture site.
Introduction. So kalau ya shana fani sebab di syarif kedon bini kita dah berjin so arbo clark it's a big approach.
Good morning everyone. So especially Adele Sisibili. She shot hard this year. Aro dona shani Boasan and Shnedo Aro Footage Bashi Kachi the Shichedo, Tia Ani the Shamala, with Amado Sanshla Aro Shea, late in late say it. Are they shuffle Aro put our Asian Nanish, Bishmas Ani Shananish Shne Aro Shama Ako Tro. Shipwreck, New Mexico. And you see that now. Under Shazan, they forgot the fluted rock with 3 turkey rooms. And you see that Jaco Atho. Upon the Shea, Oyak, and the Shido, the Pore Kea, because Agi, Johnny, and Bashir for Jean. For 8 and there's the season you can have.
How's the live, guys? Can you guys put a 1 if the live is good?
Next,
2 if it's bad.
Honorable Rick Ness.
Under the pizza. Rick
Zilshire, or one son or Zay Kachin, Bashishin, Sana Business Chado, Tia Ani, the Shinab, the Lenshna, Navation one chapter, Ado Elia, Ado as called the chapter, Panashi, Shiki, Chada, Ado someone chapter has Ani, Sassan Ani, and the Ado Nina Nazar, or a East Tosacado, East Lesh, but I had the neck Panashi, so I'm not touching it all, Nahanashi, so that should not send it the care.
I got age that I don't know Saddam City, say
themselves.
the based on mention the chapters when I Shahi, Nageezi, Purple, Maybell, City, Trump, and Nageezi, though staying on Avanashka. I'll not put it, not been Ashka either. I'll mention the 20 each, especially what's his church, such as though I said I escaped based on some ability. I had so like a resource development really happy countries money to go because a lot of things they need to people on this. Because I say my brother Doug Nash, the eyes and the resource development, the eyes and then needs to go. They are to go in a time. I say my brother Ricky Nash. I mean, I go manager, go members of resource. Our chats will be actually, I don't necessarily like message here. General, necessarily, you don't do that, we appreciate that. So, yeah, that is a thank you.
Navajo language.
I don't see detail there. But, Kudoshi.
Good morning, Yat Ebene, Shayna, Delegate Helena Nestigate Agency, Ado and I 23 in the ancient God is upon the Bashish Chi, not paid in the Edashin Chido, Nash President Hapahadashinale, Ado, Body Gap, Sinabas Habatin Hoye, Ado Kapraman Ebishage, Ado Hichi, Ado Kaibito Gabito. Ado Tanalia, Abata in the Bishas and Mishle, Biago, Ade Onasha, I call Hata A Padhani, Yan Zaden, Hikayahlan. Dini Dan Yata Bilog as Nibel in Ash in eBay, Condit Ash Edashio, all the Wash the Shaw Adam, that means Aja. Has only that been that identity on the water. I call. Ado pointed the 25th Navajo Council of the nice Canada and Hatch and that machine did also he had the best or John got it on and had a hospital and it has the dog he had on Hano Yado, Ashin Saboshi, and if he had the dog he had.
Found out to call it that.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and have the legislative services staff introduce themselves.
Good morning, my name is Rodney Tahi. I'm the legislative advisor for Resource and Development Committee. I'm Kiani and I'm Rich Trustee Baritana.
Ate Beneshe, Laramoch, Tulsada, Rashan, Hanali, Bashi, Bashiro, Hompala, One.
Yate Bena, Nasiso Sienishne, Ashihinashan, Tohot Mini Bashichi, Setna Bashichi, Ohodana Dashinale, Setia Nasha. Thank you for coming today and welcoming us. Although the Nigi Eya Hude, Shahat Nana Shikashina, she Ashishi, not Jimmy, not and the Shido, Twitchy, Bashichi, Panagani Dashido, Tohan Ekashinale. They cave cave both easy Oak Springs and Pine Springs, Ado so St. Michael's, there a baseball and Limigi, a Kotashan, Michish, and Ado Kun Limigi Kodo Hihat, Shido Pushinot, Ani Limigi, Resources Development Committee with analysis committee bilyasa hato dito kudo yan ki binayili si no biyati chen pai ko according to the agenda number 2 item, purpose of the leadership meeting. Resources Development Committee had scheduled this leadership meeting. Office of the President and Vice President. Executive Assistant Lili Ishi. Hopefully they'll be here with us, or either they're on the call here with us if I get although here's what based on the Navajo Nation Council. I just also want to share information that Speaker, Madam Speaker Curley will be here this afternoon. Navajo Nation Department of Justice, Office of the Attorney General, Bodo Department of Justice Natural Resources Unit to discuss the United States Department of the Interior's decision on the withdrawals of the public land surrounding Chaco Cultural Natural Historical Park from future leasing and mining claims. Of course, you ain't just paid the husband, but she did launch a coup, says in the newspaper, don't they media that we get don't they each and our kid. A good odd that Lily Hashine Lashi, a good odd day North Top. Again, Lily deep north, so sign if you no. Again, June 1st, you'll cut that down, treaty day, no one as they will. So that I put on Lily sign Eva. The Kushi Resources Development Committee members need to be that following week, the first full week of June, they Washington, no cannot Bible. A co-economic day, the congressional leadership, the Natani, the senators, the representatives, the Kushi to the Fasi, Nakajija. For back-to-back meetings, they cannot but the hill they spinning. So at this time, I'd like to go ahead and acknowledge some of our past leaders for the based on the Honorable Leonard Sosi. Nageezi, Ashona, you want to come up here and introduce yourself or introduce yourself? Wow.
From the ends of the earth, Beach, Arizona. Kenya, Junoshin Kabisi, Junoshin Adar Kabisi. Okay, Arushman Bible Toad, Simpson, 66 and Spa. Roy, Fassilia, Eka, Farahalism, or Ankhanash, Tavola, and the eight Hochanisha, and the Inash, and the Shajabashin, or she actually like that. Okay, I'm very good to see all of you. Yeah.
Honorable Daniel So, don't think she will be chat that, don't think.
Appreciate you guys joining.
Nas, that people, they get us on with the streets and our age to us people with door ahead.
Yeah, Kodosh, Hinat Ali, Miss Honorable Alice Benali, I don't think you need to that easy flat.
Good morning, Yahweh. Next day, Go other honorable delegates, parties, committee. Go after.
Settle true. So the meeting is about settle true.
Yeah, on the HPT. So for the team, it's not that. It's also the street for the area. Chaco, Street, Julian Denali, Archie, and Kodo, Nageezi, Kodo, yes, much the trade, Kodo, basic portfolio. Other area, other. For if you have any, no, you have these men, because I got to go, you get it for, you should be, you get it. Majority of the
With these zombies that bugs us. That's why we're just talking about, that's why we're here together.
Yeah, Shamatani, the City, Honorable Sosi, Honorable Seld, Honorable
Yeah, it means
Benali. Later that,
well, good.
Nishini, Kavitek, Ishina, Fagin, she thought it out by Agin Hamo, Copenhagen, Lini, Tado, Hasan. A Coco, Master Nadi, Kaede, Nights, so maybe a presentation and discussion. Letter A presentation by Greenberg,
Right, that's it.
Trogway, LLP, on the Chaco Cultural National Historical Park Public Land Update. Kodoshi Eya Latitahi, Miss Jennifer Whittle, Doa Harriet Redford, Ito Latitahi, with the law firm. Kodoshi Eya, Sabik Asatahi, Ajikea, the Natos, they know time, Gishi Ajikea, Itahi, Tasso, Kage, Eka, the Dota.
Nageezi, welcome. I'm trying to help expose what's going on around the Chaco culture site. So 10 radius buffering zones to keep the oil company from getting any closer to fracking around the Navajo Chaco Canyon culture site. Ranch transparency, okay. Trying to help our communities expose what's going on with that Chaco Canyon culture
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Weddle. I'm a Northern Cheyenne attorney, and I live in Denver, Colorado, and I work at the law firm of Greenberg Traurig. Most of you are probably used to seeing my law partner, Troy Ide, who served as president of the Navajo Bar Association, who actually speaks Navajo and who runs all the long-distance races down here in those crazy, colorful onesies that he likes to wear. But Troy is unfortunately at a funeral today in Oklahoma and couldn't be here himself, so he asked me to come and share information at the request of Madam Chair, who asked for an update from the Alatee's perspective on some of the legal issues associated with the land.
John Denicola, back off on Lex Pro.
Greenberg Traurig has been
the drinks
representing more than 200
I don't trust them all that
Alatees
much.
on a pro bono basis for about 5 years. we got involved in the issues around Chaco because certain environmental permits were being challenged by environmental groups for drilling permits in the area. That litigation was in federal court, and the Alatis didn't have a voice in that federal litigation. So folks approached Troy about trying to help and make sure that the Alatis' voices were heard. We started in one case doing an amicus brief at the 10th Circuit. And then when new litigation was filed, we actually represented the Alatis as interveners in the action of the district court, and then that also went to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. So became very familiar with the oil and gas operations and the history of the area. And then that morphed into the other legal issues that were implicated in and around Chaco, most particularly the draft legislation that has been introduced in the last 3 Congresses by the New Mexico delegation that would have accomplished effectively the same land withdrawal that Secretary Collins signed as an executive branch action on June 2nd. I've traveled with numerous council delegates and Alatis to Washington and helped them engage in meetings, government-to-government meetings and consultation meetings now over the last 5 years. And really told the same story every time and showed maps like these that are up here and tried to come up with solutions. Always the draft legislation discussed a 10-mile buffer zone around Chaco, which, and you guys can, anyone can come up and look closer at the maps if it's easier for you to see. But the Chaco areas here are here and here, and there's a red line that demarcates a 5-mile buffer, and then another line around it that indicates a 10-mile buffer. The tribal and allotted minerals are shown in the bright pink. And then you can see the breakaway detail that it's very checkerboarded, as you know. So federal minerals are adjacent to Alati and tribal minerals, which are here shaded in these colors. And as anyone who's engaged in oil and gas development knows, you have to have access to the whole to make it economic to develop even some of the minerals. So now that the federal minerals have been withdrawn, the tribal and allotted minerals cannot be, as a practical matter, cannot and will not be developed. So what actually happened on June 2nd was that Secretary Holland signed a secretarial order, a public land order, under the Federal Lands Management Protection Act, FLPMA, as it's known, which is a 1976 statute that gives the Bureau of Land Management more authority to care for the public lands and resources and cultural resources on those public lands, to protect things like view sheds, and really to have better enforcement of all of Interior's many interests as the chief steward of federal public lands. So Secretary Holland used her authority under FLPMA to issue a proposed rule last year. There was an environmental process around that proposed rule, which included lots of comments. The Alatis submitted comments, environmental groups submitted comments, industry submitted comments, and in addition, there were several meetings where Assistant Secretary Brian Newland came to Nageezi, but there are also strong feelings about the adequacy of those meetings, whether they were well advertised or convenient, and also whether there was appropriate translators available in those meetings. And there were also questions after the change in administration about, and concerns about the Secretary's failure to engage with the new president and vice president's office and with the new council. And that's something that Madam Speaker Curley and the president's office have written to the secretary about, discussed with the secretary, and discussed with Assistant Secretary Newland, that they wanted more meaningful consultation with their bodies. And so in late April, a meeting occurred, and Speaker Curley represented the nation as the lead voice in that meeting, and that was a meeting directly with Secretary Holland as well as Assistant Secretary Newland, and a lot of BLM staff, as well as folks from the solicitor's office. Irvin Chavez participated in that meeting, Dolores Seuss was at that meeting, and I was there as their advisor. And everybody got to speak to Secretary Holland and voice their concerns. Concerns that the 5-mile buffer, which is less harmful to Alatis, had not been adequately considered, and concerns about respect for the Navajo Nation sovereignty, and a request that the Secretary come to the nation and engage more directly with the Council and with the President's office and Alatis. She received that request. They didn't, no one from Interior offered a lot of statements at the meeting. They really indicated they were more there to listen. That was just 2 days before Council Delegate Simpson brought forward his legislation here at Nageezi again to withdraw the Navajo Nation support for the 5-mile buffer and take a hardline position that if the United States was not going to consider anything less than a 10, nation would not support or tolerate any buffer. And that legislation was enacted and signed by President Nygren shortly thereafter. And then no other meetings or consultations occurred. And the next that we heard was the press release announcement early in the morning on June 2nd that the Secretary was signing the public land order that day. The public land order withdraws 336,404.42 acres of land, which is a huge land withdrawal. It withdraws only the federal lands from leasing. Theoretically speaking, the tribal and allotted minerals, the areas in pink, could all still be leased. But the federal minerals cannot and will be leased in the future for 20 years per the order as of now. You cannot develop a number of the existing and allotted leases without getting federal leases. This has been an ongoing problem for several years because effectively, as all the debate has been going on, the Department of the Interior has not, as a practical matter, leased any federal minerals in the last years. So that has caused certain tribal and allotted mineral leases to lapse for failure of production. Because minerals in and out, then the leases will fall away. It also means that there won't be any new tribal leases, so there will be no bonus payments starting immediately. And then as the existing leases that are there are wound down, there will be a declining wedge of royalty payments available, and eventually no new production whatsoever. In terms of what monetary impact of that, in the last 3.5 years alone, from just one company, more than 20,000 allottees have received over $80 million in royalties. The best estimate that my clients have been able to come up with for the number of oil and gas leases that would be cut off by the 10-mile buffer times the average productivity of wells in this formation is that allottees will lose another $200 million in royalties over that 20-year period. And that says nothing about the bonuses and lease payments, but that's a floor of the losses is $200 million. And then the overall economic impact from the withdrawal of the federal minerals is over $1 billion of lost federal revenue from taking the federal minerals out of play. And generally that would mean loss of jobs and ancillary economic benefit from having the industry in the area. And those were all statements that were made to Interior in the environmental process that they indicated they were considering, but in the allottee's view were not adequately addressed or explained in the environmental decision documents that came out supporting the public land order. So the allottees definitely have interest in the Navajo Nation advancing a legal challenge, a litigation challenge to the public land order, and I'm happy to talk more specifically about the kinds of claims that might be included, the strategy around that, or answer questions. The more immediate chance to correct this comes with draft federal legislation, the Energy Opportunities for All Act that was introduced by Congressman Eli Crane. It is one page, truly one page, very short, and just says, the public land order 7923 of Secretary Howland is voided, which would solve this issue and then allow the parties to go back to the drawing board considering the federal legislation and potentially go back to that 5-mile buffer that would be much less harmful to the allottees. And why is that? Because the natural boundary of the formation, the oil and gas formation, is right about at the 5-mile buffer itself. So from a geology standpoint, from a practical matter, there isn't oil and gas to develop down here. These mineral leases are essentially valueless. I think Urban has an allotment in Chaco itself, and it knows there's nothing to develop there. So for years, the allottees have always said, we can live with the 5-mile buffer. We might lose a little bit, but that we can live with, and that would allow a balance of the various interests. But if you cut off the 10-mile buffer, that effectively cuts off all of the income for most of the allottees who rely solely on their oil and gas revenues as opposed to any other form of income. So if Congressman Crane's bill passes, that just resets the playing field for members of Congress, for the Navajo Nation, for allottees to again come together and see if there is a less intrusive bargain that everybody could live with. There is a hearing on Congressman Crane's bill in the House Natural Resources Committee next Thursday, July 13th at 2 p.m. President Nygren has been invited to provide testimony by Chairman Westerman at that hearing, and he's going to do that. Ms. Delora Jesus is going to represent the allottees in testimony at that hearing. And then witness for industry is going to present technical information. And then there are 2 witnesses for the minority Democratic representatives on the committee. Vice Chairman Jerome Lucero from Zia Pueblo is going to testify for the All Pueblo Governors Council. And there will also be one environmental witness who I think may be in the room. So, but the committee hasn't officially announced that yet. At that hearing, all of the members of the committee will be able to hear the testimony of each of the 5 witnesses. They'll be able to ask them questions, and then each of the 5 witnesses will also produce longer written testimony. But in addition to that, any person any allottee, any environmental group can submit written testimony for the record of that hearing. And that's something I would strongly encourage all of you to do, even if it's your own handwritten note, that's perfectly fine. You just have to get that in, and I can provide information that Madam Chair and the RDC can distribute about email addresses, mailing addresses, how you can get your comments in to Congress on that. After the hearing, that process will work its way through committee, and it's likely to pass in the House. It is not likely, candidly, to pass in the Senate. That will be a much harder policy fight. And even if it did pass the Senate, there's also that President Biden would veto that legislation. So going through that process is not what would be much more ideal to have that nation-to-nation relationship with the Navajo Nation negotiating directly with Secretary Holland about this issue. And I believe that the Office of the President and Vice President and Speaker Curley still very much want to pursue that if Secretary Holland is open to it. But for right now, the process is everybody needs to get their information, their views into the House Natural Resources Committee, really within the next 3 weeks. And then we'll see what happens in Congress. On a parallel path, the Navajo Nation and the allottees might challenge the public land order. If that were to happen, it would happen in federal district court here in New Mexico, and there would likely be 4 claims under NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, that the Bureau of Land Management failed to consider alternatives in their environmental review, and that they had a failure of consultation in their environmental review. And what that would be seeking is that essentially the BLM would be ordered to do a do-over. It doesn't mean that they would come to a different result, but it means they would have to go and do more homework in the environmental review process, to take another look at their decision-making and their analysis. There could also be a breach of trust claim for failure to maximize the allottee revenues from their minerals, which is actually required by the department's own regulations and the Indian Mineral Development Act. There could also be a takings claim. Under the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the federal government cannot take your property for a public purpose, such as a land withdrawal, unless they compensate you for that. And we would be arguing that this is an effective taking, and that the United States should replace the income the allottees would have gotten from the oil and gas development, but for the public land order. That compensation element is something the allottees have also presented to members of Congress over the last several years, that if the United States is intent on withdrawing these lands, they need to compensate the allottees because this is their only asset, at least $200 million that should be made available to compensate the allottees for taking their property. And then the 4th claim is a challenge under FLPMA to the Secretary's authority. FLPMA, on its face, contains an acreage limitation of 5,000 acres. And here we have almost 350,000 acres. So we're way over the limit. But FLPMA contained a protection that if the Secretary is to withdraw anything over 5,000 acres, she has to give notice to Congress, and then Congress has the ability to just, with a simple majority, veto that land withdrawal. So when Congress enacted FLPMA, they gave themselves a savings power, saying essentially, if we don't like a big land decision, we can undo it like that. Snap of the fingers. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has found that congressional savings clause in FLPMA unconstitutional, and they struck it out. There's an open legal question about whether the Secretary's authority to therefore withdraw anything over 5,000 acres is also gone because the savings clause is gone. it's a legal doctrine about whether you strike out one sentence or two in the same provision. And we think that is likely to be a circuit split. The 10th Circuit is likely to find that the Secretary does not have authority to, by herself, withdraw anything over 5,000 acres, and that issue would probably wind itself up to the U.S. Supreme Court because there's a split between the circuits on that. So it could turn into a very expensive and protracted legal battle. It's likely to take 3 to 5 years to get through the U.S. Supreme Court process just on that flipment issue, assuming there isn't an intervening order to the BLM to go do more homework before then. So this is probably more of a 5 to 7 year timeline on litigation. But during that entire time, those federal minerals would still not be leased. There's nothing to force the federal government to lease those. So you're looking at almost half of the withdrawal time could be spent litigating this, which again is why it would be so important to try to come to an acceptable middle ground somehow, whether that's a combination of a 5-mile buffer and compensation, or just like compensation for the taking to the allottees. There's a lot that the Navajo Nation can pursue to try to make this better for the local folks here, who I know have very strong feelings they want to share with all of you about how this is impacting them, and the stress and uncertainty of this is impacting their families.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your presentation. So what I would like to do is I'm going to go ahead and hold it off until item C on the agenda. Department of Justice, Office of the Attorney General, Leon Kohler, Division of Natural Resources Unit. So at this time, I don't know if we have Madam AG, Miss Ethel Branch on the call, or Miss Veronica Blackhat, in regards to just giving some information to our constituent here that are in attendance, and to leadership as well, in regards to the land withdrawal that had happened, and just to give insight to our constituents here that the Navajo Nation is going forward in whatever strategy that we might have. So I'd like to go ahead and allow time over to Ethel Branch or Miss Veronica Blackhat.
Thank you, Paul. It's January 30, Vice President of our community, Navajo Silversmither. Please subscribe to this channel.
Can you hear me now? Yes. I was just saying that I did alert her that we're up now, so joining the call. Good afternoon.
Okay. Nageezi. Why we pronounce it Navajo is Nageezi. Nageezi is pumpkin squash in Navajo. Nageezi.
So again, we do have constituents present in the meeting hall here at the gymnasium at Nageezi. And I just wanted to allow time right now to Department of Justice with your office or either the Natural Resources Unit on some research that as legal representation for the Navajo Nation has been done, and just to give a little information to our constituents here that are present and also on the call in regards to this Chaco Canyon Public Lands withdrawal. So I do yield the floor over to you at this time.
I didn't hear the introduction, but thanks for having me here. I've balancing a couple of competing things on my calendar, so I apologize for being a little bit late tuning in. Yeah, today everyone, today after graduation, staff and the Michelin after Mrs. Cheese that engineered us today at our market. And today, in Washington, the Evans Council, Nageezi, and it's an honor to be here with the committee and members of leadership and everyone who is joining this conversation. As I explained to the committee, I'm happy to have this conversation with my clients in a privileged context, but I'm not, it would not be appropriate when they have this conversation in a public forum. So, Madam Chair, I assume we have time scheduled next week to have this conversation, or you have some availability for the committee of this conversation, and confirming whether that works for my calendar as well. If not, we can schedule another time that works for everyone to have that conversation.
So it's not a cop watch, I public to everybody. I'm just trying to help the communities on the Navajo Nation expose what's going on here about Chaco culture site, 10-mile radius buffer zone.
Thank you, Madam AG, Ms. Ethel Branch. شكاش لا أباء كفولوفوني إيدا ناجد ودنابا واشنطن غطنت آهي صو إيدا خشيت صدون لنيجي إيدا جولي صاحبة هسكت الغانا جاء آهي سليث attorney-client privilege at this time أكو منذ إذا بعدنا تاني بيجيني ناسي تاني هجوفته يجي يفتحه آفي كفله أكو باس تيجي بالنابو ليجي جود غادي تاي جلو شيء باس تي لسا غادي ليه حسبان ليجي بهجنا أكو بنج ليجي شيء أيا سهجو كذا شيء كنا تاني ليجي يفتحه عادو أي إنت شيء بنج ليجي أخذ ناخو جيشو ناسو يجي خجول يفتحه أي خير ليجي أيا you cannot later launch, you cannot only limit so President Nygren, although Kate is Danigi, Vice President Montoya, although Kodo launch, Base Boss, unless the United Speaker, although Kodo 25th Navajo Nation Council, Joy Base Kate is there, although Asagi, you cannot submit or she added in the result of Lindi, later on the Ako kwaige ebe da si tish na shoden diligi khaba honosen. Ako di kodo eya ratit ai kishin ai ge edi be kojon na ho kospiya da eya Denver Colorado bisna adishi edi ge ade non-mission diligi just on for that sabik asitahi kodo e hashi over eya Anik kodo yika ishi do non-mission kashne bisno. Ako kodo eya SK is chen the Bureau of Land Management, jo the Department of Interior eya sahi a sign iida the Bureau of Land Management ya hashi sogo the ba de le kea the enforcement a the nahustan adan the infrastructure the new leases oil leases that could out and get a bit of gas in that a good eye in at a the Washington the not ani a large big up and that the congressman no congresswoman bigi ya hashing so the I got not so something the dance ya you had zero who ya a large not ani the Department of Interior can the not kind of other large a society the not mission Adui kaho ilan. Jope has only aimed data now so sanity triggered 1868. A kunasa not so kati the Yakobo Washington, the Navajo Nation or Navajo Indian Reservation, 18 Vinigi, the state Nishto, Vinigi Ado da kea da ahiki e ya be ada slave mission joki na mission dingi ido yan le choto ka ku illa da hisne ado koje hajol khana zar dik at gas esa da dia di da na da ni ben ke da hati ni ki pesh pansa anne ado inda lanji kinat ani dini President Niger Dominic Vice President Montoya ado koda hajol the hukon kito dita asho on dinigi the queen the she sanasli the other hajo kodo ihike the and dinigi kodo na sospena dit ahi fata de yaya other hajo kia de skito other hajo yes ida a copen not trust responsibility sebela gana bazaja dirigido ya ida da na kodo ya ide latis no singing sabi kasi tayo kaya no ta kodo no hasazo kodo haati nidon kiste ado sto dirigi ya le Washington she other congressman Eli Crane is ya hashing so the name we hit the name he chajaha z ko na so straight laya but not testify she na before the Natural Resources Committee in the Washington ko ko not ani large ipe isni ko the hoko ado inda kodo sa anka away na ado kodo Miss Jesus so zinishi hoko but ni ado so we cannot ani Linigi, Honorable Delegate Danny Simpson, Akul Linigi Nata representing the 25th Navajo Nation Council, Ado in the diplomatic speaker, currently Stoshi, Akul Bagava days at the Mobis Kane, Ako put on Linigi, she ya dik at 5 big yes at the Lonigi, Kodoha Dan Sobo, in Hizad the dogs east. He hindered this Joeda and he given Naje Jopa Aquino Ado as hard that Jopa or she Adam Vini reverse to his made of Jono put up and Vini Kajopa in needs. A Cotadan Sado, Hiahachik Ashikina Kundini Hanoya, Ani a yan sick case, a dance hard. Do yan hikodo besh pasa ani do ada iheza the snap base adults zido pinya pasi taro pa jo ishtan shri kodo ki the nano singo balash lai khas tie khajo paya khajni pa ki na pa ki lini Hala has 3 sons and Kuta on the Kina soft the dance cargo, Kia, later that Lily citizen that this son, he sent that who Lily shall wait for Lola, your paper, so can I your paper go. Then that a sheep I did so good. Lily, Yenis, Although who the shika was hard, they the better now toast that jo who lily art any answer case, doy on kid a dancy case, why in lily ocean about the nosen. A co a benach lily who had an codora in Yakodo hit in Hayes. Sabik as a dog the cart cake on no Elohashi, so go Arjake they no tie, Codon Hayes. Roshle Hyaha Tagoda Hae the Doni or the put on living to the case of deep on Tago and deep Ado Kododo and Napa Washington don't lily Kodoshi and Natural Hajon Hachi Nato a co a put a lashik a ship na a Kodon lily a ya Nasta Nada di Kao a dida not so kais, so we ado letter C, the discussion. Kodole president, do vice president for office, do a Kohon Lini, Kodo Hashi, so the Ehan Ajapan, do Ado she that is the Zoom Lini, Ado Kodo Shahat. Kodo Sitahi, Kodo Eyan Kili, Onto, Kodo Eya, had issued his Ahi Kizad, 88, Ya Ado Kodo, and Najin Kinad, Hata Satan Hayati, Madam Speaker Curly, she thought, Eshe Yande, that she became Hasti, became the Natande, Ada, Yasazini chapters, Ada Ekon Shlomo, I is for Ada Stashigato, ko e ko ai lili pa ako nosen aro ko to Department of Justice area which hadzi lagi ahi so bidi lili is Apple branch aro ida kuna an kira latis no lili ko de eya ko ai shi bi ai tito to ko lili ge ashode ashili da pale large in hile is aro de ke but Kodoni a Bahamas and Aya, by the Tahanjiki, they buy the base Hajanova. So I'd like to allow they buy the pushing of this Sinigi, allow 5 minutes and then Tahanjiki, who didn't give a couple de project about the dish on project partners and another society. And I really like to also thank here Mr. Honorable Leonard Sosi. He's the Executive Director for Eastern Navajo Land Commission. I know that under the Eastern Navajo Land Commission, Naked Asad the Moya Dadash the Quiz Kanada Aja resolution Hadedita, A at Big T Yet Aja Danini put on the Arjana Sospena Ahe Landa is the a call put Aya Dana enough Sosi the Katoki Besh Pasa Anna Aja Sat Daily a larger Aja Eastern Navajo Land Commission Meseta a call for I said, he taught us the local Nageezi got it as a dive which Mr. Irvin Chavez.
Listen, Hitler, Shinan I, Lily Kudo Chair, Chair Jesus, Ado Kudo, RDC, on all Kanikido, Sashi, I must start again, Christmas, and Lily, Hitler, Peggy, Dini, she, Thinking that's it, then Rick, is it the times now? That we're having these meetings quickly. I call Kashin, so in the Veda, Ken Khana, She's Chairman Rick as RDC, so I gave it. I could be Kodo, should I was going to Kodo, Hanigi, should have known, so. The Kodo, all here, in conditions so baby, how Kagi. The Nageezi gave that. The creed, that agenda is now in the Washington Capitol. I is overaching, got a big snail, only it's organized. So, there's control, but the audience out of the JG, that was in other Washington. Even in Dick Adwana, Sajid that your nest, so. We are set the Yak Eka, the Yak Downing comes me crazy. Kodo, any Kodo chair, is your own man. Caution out a was in need a lot. Their parliament or they said that treaty day when they appeared in Adam Lodge a Kodo and the Hashijila. That tells you total disrespect. But the leadership could then come Hadi Nasa of Kasula Cheda. I don't. Jonah so special. I can't have Jonah today that and the greater man special. That's all we ever got. But the crazy as the Korean data. Hashem to the and then so things not out it's it says Christian after about kings of their power, not another. In the so we need to get this administration out of office and I'm fully put up. Could I have this sensitivity? Could I have regional management plan or Yakodo and so some better idea on the picture. Think that those are the building and said that he is. Still, 8 years ago, was Navajo Nation government leadership. Still, years ago, not so strategic. I made a regional management plan amendments on the RMPA. Oya, I get a repeat the same. Benina Niki no, the oil and gas oil is just an excuse for them. Kasi sa kaya na kaya na it are a major cheap because they want control of that country. Ako sa has as a day kung that what that's because of aging na ni Quaking the as no either. At where a king behind so that I could go DRA, DLN, is not a key bandit. There are the toilets over the nose, the RMPA, RMP, Gayla, Naso, the Bekasi, the Beck, that's Joseph, Ayo, is 8 times. I could hit Dana as a cleaner, because Kanda planning meeting, out of Dana chapter meeting is Leon. Nageezi chapter is going to take a position that we're urging the Navajo Nation not to sign up on those RMPAs. RMPA, we're giving the Kisanis more power. So that I'm offending you. In there. Only one of them has to say no to stop the whole project. You have this air glass. Hashem to go to check the on this. No, it's our kid on this time. It's going to take 31 public trials to say yes for those projects. Even if not, oil and gas is just a big excuse, just a cover up. But Craig, I'm affinity, as about some case of it. Based on RDC. I know Hashem to the the president, Lenny President Nine, and it's all something. And the previous age, I had a family not in our BB. President Nine, we really want you to take a hard look at whether you should sign an RMPA or not. Quickly answer about some key. I don't know, I got 5 minutes, but I do want to say, Chaco Canyon Ruin, I love an honesty. Where nobody's bothering it, Navajos don't go in there. We don't steal potteries. We don't steal bones. Maybe somebody else does, not. Let me think of it. This job, that piece around the world. Uncle Belacana, crazy art. It's not even in the Chaco Canyon. If it's that sacred, close the darn thing. The outside 350,000 acres of total charge that you lied on dead set against it, and I'm finity. So time there, but only not that she's Andrew Charlie. He stood on zero buffer zone. They have enough land that they're doing it. No, not she. Needs other people and needs. I would still go with zero buffer zone because they have enough. The allotment, visual estimate, there's 6 allotments that they're using right now. They have not reimbursed the use of our allotments for their national park revenues. But the deed out in the budget next year is voted. You know what to do. Thank you.
Mr. Travis. And again, let's please be respectful of time. And could you please state your name for the record? And so you do have. Okay, 5. So you do have 5 minutes starting now.
Sure. We got the Ashkin total to the Russian trade. Chief Russian Nageezi. I was engaged. Arosh Chaco Asas and Pelagas Nancy Kidaju. Aro Mario Atencio Washington Network. God's faith and share resource and development community. Standing rise today as both Vice President of Torrance Starley Chapter and as representative of Lot Keith, my mom and dad. I'll be a potential stakeholder in their states. I don't really want to relate. In 2013, Eastern Navajo Agency Council passed a resolution citing public health, requesting a moratorium on oil and gas drilling in the Farmington area, BLM Farmington region. 2015, Torrance Starley Chapter was speaking for our chapter. Other chapters, Open Single Council, passed a resolution calling on Congress to intervene to stop the oil and gas drilling in the region because of public health concerns. Big issue, councilors. Next, 2016, Eastern Navajo Agency Council again passed a resolution requesting a moratorium on oil and gas drilling in the region. 2019, Eastern Navajo Agency Council debated going from 10 miles to 5 miles. The vote came out 23, 10, 22. Out of 55 votes, a simple majority needed to be 27. On your rules as council, you realize that to go from 10 miles to 5 would not reach plurality in Eastern Navajo Agency Council. What this means, this whole area, besides this lopsided presentation, my fellow council members of Eastern Navajo Agency Council, because of the public health issues, are divided on this issue. This resolution is encased in the zero buffer legislation that exhibits. All these resolutions are held at each of their respective chapters. I think one point, Nageezi passed a call for moratorium on oil and gas drilling. Those resolutions still exist. Those past leaders weighed in on this issue, aiding a stand behind it. Today, the FONSI that was included in the environmental assessment was bought over by power disservice to you. The Fonzie says only 7 wells, see 2 well pads, are going to not be developed because of the withdrawal. 2 minutes. A work session that was held really have to come to light and be considered by this committee. Main point being, at what point does consultation go? We, at the ground level, would have loved to have Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs come twice and listen to us on the public health impacts. It happened here. Senor Leonard Sosi was there in Albuquerque talking to them as an executive assistant with OPVP. Deadlines are deadlines, Shinanta. I think we know this. And this was started in 2021. As oversight over executive branch, you had to look at who was in that office. And when they transferred power, they needed to have given you the whole document. I think Honorable Delegate Slater is right on in his thinking and process. I think you need a real good discussion exactly where this is going. Really, overall, the public health impacts are huge, but not only that, we don't know how impactful this process is on the Navajo Exchange Legislative Initiative. Nelly. And so with that, thank you, Madam Chair. Please take that into account and the impacts of water resources. But with that, I appreciate the time and out of respect for the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. If you can, please state your name well. Podosik Enos Senigis Bonosoni Ashone. A lot of us are new delegates in this capacity, and we do have our former leaders also in the room. Leida Ihe Matani, Banamish Eyi Daya. Kodoha Jobe Fasitino. San Linigi, who Linigi Hajo, Pagi Sapitle. Jobegay Pagi Esa Hasli. Ado Eya Ani Edo. We don't think the same, though. I think Linigi CTs of Kodo, Di Pagi Kia Hanzo. That's what we want to hear. Who Linigi A at the national, the Pagi may not huge who Linigi. So go ahead, state your name, and you do have 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm talking to my people in English. I'm not good at speaking Navajo. My Nali sent this to the white people, and maybe not. Frankie Davis I ran for Navajo Nation president, and none of you voted for me. Hooray. Well, anyways, this is what I said. I said, if we are not sovereign. It's a lie. We are still serving the federal government in Washington. We're tied to them. But take the scissor, I said, all of us as Navajo people, Alatis, to let go and become sovereign, to make our own way instead of hanging on to the federal government. Because I said, when I was running for Navajo Nation president, they're coming for your water, they're coming for your land, they are coming for you. And you're losing. What the neck? This is all they gave me. And they said, that's a good way. And then I said, begin God, you're holy ones. So don't be like the Navajo Nation Council. They pray, then they fight. That's not a bahasti citizen. So when you pray, you are accountable. When you fight and argue and do not speak properly to one another. That's all we hear. Okay, so this is my example. Shinala oh, Kenya Ani, she touching, but she Ashchi do Shinala na Kaitner and now they speak in the Ade na shot Ako Dide a good art to Nasanish na do on Manishne. Ako Dide Dishne. Why cannot, and I'm going to say this to Mrs. Waddle here, Waddle, whatever, is it Waddle? Well, anyways, yeah, anyways, so, we can, let me just let me off, okay. I don't know if we can do this, but I say, get blasted protection and restraining order. Restrain these are the people we want to restrain. The Pueblos, Secretary Deb Helen, and all environmentalists to get off the Iwati land. They have no business here. We are here. The Pueblos, they, Kisani, Hakashita Bakan. When he take me, Kai. I'm we're here. Honey, she Deb Helen. Oh, Jonathan Nageezi. And Boo. And everybody else.
Ms. Davis, you have 2 minutes, please.
Okay, they're going out there and God them. You know what a protective order is? Anybody who gets emotional abuse, harmful actions, any type of, to stay away from any contact. When we went and closed the gates to Chaco Canyon, we had a Pueblo woman slap one of our Navajo women, and that is wrong. We need to get this, I don't know, I'm talking to the attorneys, we need protective and restraining order for the Alatis. This is us, this is our land. Dini, Keda, Yego Tsudabazen. There are people like Mr. So here, environmentalist, Jay. I cannot stand this man. I'm sorry. But we have to
Ms.
fight.
Davis, could you please refrain from that?
Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me, I'm being mean. Okay.
Okay, so
we need to have a restraining order. Amen.
You know, if we do not control our tongues, Ashonda, we're just going to stop this session because I would have hoped that as leadership, we're doing too much pointing fingers right now. Nobody, Trump. Us younger generation are sitting here and this is how we're going to conduct ourselves in public. We can't be doing this, Ashonda.
I don't understand free speech.
I heard something that's relevant to this whole thing, but those other things that are going on.
Hello, etc. Should men of Senegal care on Yagi on of top? Quebec, Edo, Rodi, and
Is that all thin up there?
J. A young and a
Source?
family.
It's all
You should be on of top. You should be conquered where it did. But you should have a I don't Daniel social now, you should have a in Chong, nowhere. I did that. I'm not sweating.
Daniel Einstein. Yeah.
Oh, that's all.
Those people sitting up here, up there on that table, they're trying to control. They don't understand we have free speech, we have civil rights.
Alan Hegat eat Ahipona, but then I shut it, don't Hegat eat Ahit Sokin in Jigabina, but has taken that Evelyn and the Rayman spoke between Nahoto, if I the effort the dog, Niki, and
Community
again,
up there don't understand that.
Guru hidden snag of the Nenny, Nego. The Ashisha do Yat Ehibe, Chico. People are upset
the way the system is run.
Dear company, yes, Haneka, a year, Chido, a day, not Hanek in the art, but if it's Haneki, Ibelina, Epic Ecuador there. Oh, are there? Under church
yeah, but he's not here. They're trying to invite him to this meeting, but he's not showing up. That's the king.
He
should be here.
The creator sheep baby chap our geodochi our lunch in the dogs eat neniki inti should not seniki a jodo le ashmore the
Honorable Nes Aroshanai Nini Ado Karela Ado Nishiki did chief live for the record while Ado that you have 5 minutes to start to change the
Cosina, c'è tanta, torna da Cosina, so,
trying to expose what's going on here. The committee up there want to control what's going on here. People are trying to voice their concerns freely.
Data is bigger than what we're talking about now.
I understand.
DK Cobalt, 350, 1,000 acres, 500 acres that need.
But that lady that was kind of upset earlier, she was saying, why is Blue Niger not here?
Because our elderly were illiterate. They didn't know how to write in English,
totally
or even talk English, or had anyone to interpret those letters that were given to them about deadlines and re-registration, all those things. Oh, now, yes, some go on top, a bit like scale over the been now begin that is okay, and the federal government took it. ADN and other saw saying that as one I said, you see, they took this a dog, maybe a car, the language for now did. There's something's got to be done. The commitment of 1868 really, somebody dropped the ball. Mainly the BIA, who was responsible for taking care of our welfare, tribal welfare. Yeah, I don't know how. These things I do what the Interior Department. But I don't know how treaty, yeah, no, on the state he's coming, you know, that is a slap of faith. The reason why is keeping on the ship. Oh, I thought.
Appreciate you. Daddy for it. This needs to be heard. It needs to be exposed.
The Western way of doing things.
Share it out.
I should get a hundred there. The Western need that. The other no never did that. And then that can buy. The Christians are going the wrong way right now. Even now. Share I'm interested in that. Call out one of them. 20 years up there. Urban systems. So a year, I these tomorrow. Maple Susan Hendrick Hughes,
Exactly, JC.
Willie Martinez, Jose Domingo, Tyler Harris. I know who's clear. Even now, I say about Jameson, but what is it? You can't make Chaco there. You say the office in it. Because the whole company, we don't get the data. German relatives, the concept of the science of our having our 52nd anniversary, they're pretty soon. That's why you can't go out and let her go. They're not some months kids, not just a day. They're harder, like cut off, got that. Other kids, and you don't need. Don't take what you are today as if it's just the biggest thing. Go for the future. She was going to Even I think Kayaki, I probably not anywhere. So, do you want to do that, huh? The next couple, yes, state land. But how do you need? Buy it instead of buying land way out there in the Buffalo Yankees from the other. But gone, they are. Well, Keith's friends, let's go for the land back. Bring some of them back to our people. The reservation is overgrown. 500,000 Navajos. I couldn't try to know America.
Right, cool.
Was a bit of isn't it? That's from Diego. How do you get people will do that. I fought for that. I'm a combat Marine. I fought for the right of people to say whatever it is they want to say, to live the way they want to. Thank you very much.
I motion to Mr. Harrison for those kind words. I'd like to go ahead and allow Honorable Otto Sojanatani to introduce himself. Being late for the list, is that then I'll go ahead and allow time to Mr. So.
Hey, good morning. That is the Nimosh that I'm also, it has been now quite network with Danish, people, and it's a couple of she look at that and say, no, it's not the this is the video of project. This is I don't know, Iceland a sheep cat. What that is, now, hopefully, a tea so not to be set. So, I don't know, I did, so Masan when he has another need to start before making it today. I did, he knows that the other should go Carol in she yell at all and that kiss or that oh I don't know that mission I got no nothing. It is out and that
For those Shiva Hoshananish, Vice Chair Honorable Johnson.
Good morning. Good morning. Just want to say good morning to everybody. Shay Casey Johnson this year. My education this year has gone as all Bashichin. And I'm the Shay, Timothy Bishnell. The Ego the name is Tisabeda Nasha. So I'm the Vice Chair for REC and also the Vice Chair for Naval Land Commission. I want to thank you for being here today. I'm looking forward to listening to your concerns, looking forward to meeting with you, and I'm here to support the Net people. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, for them, should not on the Honorable Vice Chair Johnson go auto. So now I'd like to go ahead and yield the floor over to you, Mr. Daniels. So 5 minutes, yeah.
Eight to the net, Madam Chair and Vice Chair and committee members and delegates. Appreciate I come that since I already introduced myself. Number one, within that mineral withdrawal, me and my siblings have shares on 14 allotments. So in that respect, I have a say in how we should proceed. Number one, let me take you back to the 1970s. Chaco,
what's going on here.
City with Yay, Blanket City, yeah.
Nageezi the next one. Nageezi means squash. Nageezi. That's how you say it. Squash pumpkin.
That's how you say it's that cold reserved to the Iraqi. Then there was others that had allotment papers that didn't say that. It was reserved to the U.S. government. They took that issue to DNA at the time, Paul Fry, moved through the court system. The Navajo Nation hired Paul Fry, and that was settled out of court. That made it to where anybody that had allotment papers had mineral rights to their allotment. So, the other part is, at the time, it was planned for the Starlight coal mine, and that was stopped. And I'm asking this committee to modify their position. Chaco is 350,000 acres. Maybe 5,000, 7,000 acres. That green part, that's where the Mangus Shale, Gallup Mangus Shale deposits are. If you ever go to the San Juan College School of Energy, over to New Mexico Tech, and you ask for, let me see that shale, we have to understand that. So, in that respect, and the other part is, in the 80s, there used to be a uranium mine right there on Navajo 9, just outside of Crown Point. The underground miners used to go down in the pits. Out of that, the water was pumped out. And for so many years, Lake Valley was going. The actual lake had lake water in it. So in that respect, I'm asking this committee to modify their position. Just that area of dispute, 5,000 to 7,000 acres. ADK. Ask them to withdraw. The other part is understand. In 2003, the resource management plan was signed by then President. You check it out. 2003. By the flip month, every 10 years, they're supposed to redo a resource management plan. They introduced it in 2013, but they called it an amendment. And that's what we've been fighting since 2013. And it's still not approved. In 2003,
resource management
That's
plan,
in the zone. That's
that
Jenny
area
Stanley
that's
right there.
currently the withdrawal,
Vice President for our community.
it was administratively enforced by then Secretary Ken Salazar. So it's not new. Even in the current resource management plan amendment, it shows that this is a protection zone. And the area outside it is the development zone. And I'll tell you, I wish you guys would come to the councilor in the Bolancino area and see what development is. 1 million acre feet, 1 million gallons per well is what's used. Out of that, 8 to 10 million gallons of produced water comes out that has to be hauled. Guess what? Our own Navajo Nation EPA allows that produced water to be injected to a deep well just close to Nageezi dormitory, close to that wash that's there, Nageezi wash. So those are the facts that one has to understand. With the Navajo Nation, U.S. government, the state of New Mexico, each allotment, 160 acres, has water rights of 26 acre feet. And you guys over to the west, you're just deemed not having water rights. Compare those. The Navajo people in the livestock raisers, guess what? We pay grazing fees. It goes to BIA, and then it goes to the Navajo Nation. Nothing comes back this way in windmill repair, installation of wells. Give that money back so that the allotment owners, the grazing units can use it for their benefit. We know the Arizona folks don't pay grazing fees, so there's that. So the other, one more last party, there was an executive order 709 that included all of Eastern Agency to the east and to south of Gallup. That thing by a congressional act was voided. And we've been working on this particular Navajo Eastern Land Initiative, NELI, for the longest period of time. The one change that the 24th NABI included was to include orphan personality. We want that back. We want it to be tribal trust land. The old treaty, everything from over there to here is nothing but executive order lands. So we want to include this particular part. There's many more other historical items that I could include, but I appreciate the time. And at some point in time, if the committee will allow, I would like to present additional comments and documents. Thank you.
So next, I'd like to go ahead and yield the floor over to Mr. Leonard Sosi. So you do have 5 minutes, Mr. Sosi.
Yeah. Went back at 11:33, so a lot of Lydia, I am still carrying from a and the sensitivity of the kind of Anna. I was the man about me, about the John, the COVID over the other. I was go by the PDA, Kaya, Secretary in Chief, Kaya, and this job. ADD, the Nepalese, the natural, I think council, I think it's a I don't especially be here because this bankin, holding the bankin. Our additional line commission, Yayash Tito, Ashin Soiti, resolution, AG that Yashan die. Koko, Asian Joy, AOK, the cut. Jokoji, I don't think he's not the Secretary of Holland. China is Aro now, that is Congress. Aja Yao, Wanda, Hota, Wanigi, Tasha, and Lady, Kashodi, then I saw Saturday, all neighborhood, they had such mother man or the Cocodi, now the boy, the Cocoda, California, Cocoda, the Nashidinita, AD Coco. Out of our employee teacher, it's like society, young or come, or Agnos and Jonah, Coco, but I swear when the thousand night or cat, or Hashim Soy, it would have been nice to hear from the Nauvoo Department of Justice